Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's your Facebook Senator once again, and I have some information for you. Some things that you should be concerned about. Our national debt on the books is $22 trillion. Now, that doesn't include the over $150 trillion that we have in contracts going forward. Just to pay off the $22 trillion on the books at this moment, we would need to have a surplus of $500 billion for 44 years. That's a lot of money when we're running a deficit of almost 700 billion every year. So the net that we have to create is 1.2 trillion a year in order to get to that number and sit on that for 44 years just to pay off the debts that we have right now. So let's start off with some basics here. The CBO predicts that by 2028 we're going to be at 100% of GDP. You know who was at 100% of GDP? Greece. Greece was at 106% of GDP before they went into the windfall that created the austerity measures that put most of the people in Greece into dire straits. That's where we're going to end up at this rate by 2028. We need sweeping reforms here, and we need to change the way we think about our taxation. First and foremost, people, you and I, in our income tax, we pay most of the taxes. $1.6 trillion a year come from our wages. That's separate from what we pay in payroll tax, the Social Security, etc. That's just the federal taxation, 1.6 trillion. The corporations we work for, the people that write our checks, besides what they match on the payroll, the rest of what they pay on their profits is 297 billion. That's 1.5% of GDP. Now, to put this in perspective, the average country in the world is at a 29.41% compared to GDP rate for their corporate tax rate. When we talk about tax reform and helping the little guy out, if we keep cutting these corporate taxes, we're the ones that are getting left out. What I'm trying to get at here is that we need to separate the structure of taxing the corporations and individuals. A lot of people say it's taxing the rich versus taxing the poor or the middle class, etc. We need to eliminate that vocabulary from our minds altogether and start talking about taxing corporate structures versus taxing individuals, separate them ostensibly in all bills and all ideals going forward, and create a system where we tax the corporations and we tax the individuals. The individuals are paying their fair share, and I think that it's comparative to the rest of the world, it's a fair amount that we have to pay. Each person in each state pays a little different based on their state taxes, so we have to separate that as well. If you're living in New York or California, you're probably paying a little more than we pay in the flyover states. But that's your state taxes. We're talking just about federal taxes here. So that being said, we need to look and analyze what the corporate structures are paying overall. If we can get a flat tax on corporate revenues at 10%, 15%, 20%, we can see a turnaround in our economy, and we can see a surplus of funds to go towards all kinds of projects like infrastructure and everything else, schooling, a bunch of things on the table. At 20%, if we can get them to 20% of GDP, we'll be pulling in approximately $1.5 trillion a year from what they create. That being said, that gives us a $1.1 trillion difference in what we're making in revenues right now as a government. This budget surplus is that $500 billion I'm talking about. That would take us 44 years to pay off our current debt. It is a necessity that we get to $500 billion or higher in the next 5 to 10 years in order to start paying off this debt, or else we're going to see a situation by 2028 that is very similar to what they're seeing in Greece. And once the well runs dry, my friends, we're going to be seeing austerity measures, our Social Security, our Medicare, our Medicaid, all these things that our parents, our friends, our relatives rely on will disappear, and we will be in big trouble. What I would ask you to do is, in your conversations online, when you're talking to your friends, whether you're right or left, up or down, get rid of the vernacular of taxing the rich or taxing the poor. Start speaking in a way that the media doesn't want you to, which is taxing corporations versus taxing the individual. Try and separate it. Get them to separate the ideas, and let's find a way to pull more money out of these corporations that are making record profits, like your insurance company that denied your claim, the same company that denied your uncle's or your father's claim for his cancer, and he ended up passing away because he couldn't get insurance coverage. That same company made record profits year after year, hand over hand. They should be paying their 20%, at least in this society, if they're not going to cover you. All these other companies, I mean, Apple's becoming a $1 trillion company. Jeff Bezos just became the first $150 billion man. He's almost as rich as the whole Walton family. Speaking of rich people, the Waltons, how did they make $150 billion? Anyways, folks, this is your Facebook Senator KJ, just bringing you more information, more new ways to look at stuff, different ways to protest, and different ways to think about things. Stop using what the media wants you to use. They're synergistic, and they want you to think in a certain way. Break that pattern, think in a different way, and look at things differently. Ask them to tax the corporations, not the individuals. Remember to like this, pass it on, share it, and I'll be coming at you with more videos shortly. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try to respond to them as fast as possible. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.